Breaking news, a respected Courier Mail columnist just delivered the most devastating blow to Anthony Albanese's credibility that we've seen since he took office. Des Houghton didn't just question the Prime Minister's immigration policies, he completely destroyed them on national television with facts so damning that Labour's spin doctors are probably working overtime right now trying to contain the damage. This isn't your typical political commentary, this is a journalist with decades of experience calling out the most catastrophic policy failure in modern Australian history. While you've been told everything is under control, while Albanese smiles for cameras and promises prosperity, the brutal truth has been hidden from you until now. Des Houghton just ripped the band-aid off Australia's immigration crisis, and what he revealed will make your blood boil. We're not talking about minor policy disagreements, we're talking about systematic governmental incompetence that's destroying the Australian dream for millions of hardworking families. Here's what they don't want you to know: Australia's immigration system under Albanese has become so catastrophically broken that even seasoned journalists who've seen everything are calling it impossible to sustain. When Des Houghton, a man who's covered politics longer than most MPs have been alive, goes on Sky News Australia and declares the current situation unsustainable, you better believe every single Australian should be paying attention. The housing crisis isn't some abstract economic concept, it's a deliberate consequence of immigration policies that prioritise political optics over Australian families. While you're struggling to find affordable housing, while your kids can't buy their first home, while rental prices skyrocket beyond recognition, Albanese government keeps pumping more people into an already overwhelmed system. Des Houghton didn't mince words when he stated it's impossible to provide housing for everyone coming into the country. Impossible. But here's what makes this revelation absolutely explosive: Houghton isn't some right-wing extremist or political hack, he's a mainstream journalist calling out what every honest observer can see but few have the courage to say publicly. When respected media figures start using words like unsustainable to describe government policy, you know we've crossed a line from political disagreement into policy catastrophe. The Courier Mail columnist's bombshell interview exposed something that goes far deeper than housing shortages. It revealed a government that's either completely out of touch with reality or deliberately misleading the Australian public about the true scale of our immigration crisis. Houghton's analysis cuts through political spin like a hot knife through butter, delivering truths that make Labour's talking points look like fairy tales. Think about this for a moment: we have a seasoned political observer, someone who's watched governments come and go for decades, declaring that current immigration levels are literally impossible to sustain given our housing infrastructure. This isn't opinion, this is mathematical reality colliding with political fantasy. When journalists start using words like impossible, it means we've moved beyond policy debates into crisis territory. The timing of Houghton's intervention couldn't be more significant. Just as Australians are waking up to the reality that homeownership has become a distant dream for entire generations, just as rental markets are exploding beyond affordability, a respected voice confirms what millions suspected: the system is broken beyond repair under current policies. What makes Houghton's assessment so devastating is its simplicity. You don't need complicated economic models or university degrees to understand basic mathematics. If you bring in more people than you can house, you create a crisis. If you continue those policies despite obvious failure, you create a catastrophe. That's exactly where Albanese's government has led Australia. The Sky News Australia platform gave Houghton the opportunity to speak truths that mainstream media often avoids. His willingness to call policies unsustainable represents a breakthrough moment in Australian political discourse. Finally, someone with credibility is saying what ordinary Australians have been thinking for months. Behind Houghton's clinical assessment lies a more disturbing reality. How did we reach a point where basic policy competence has become so rare that honest journalism feels revolutionary? When stating obvious facts about housing mathematics becomes controversial, you know political discourse has been completely corrupted by spin and ideology. The housing crisis isn't happening in isolation, it's the predictable result of immigration policies that ignore infrastructure capacity, economic reality, and social cohesion. Houghton's impossible assessment reflects what urban planners, economists, and housing experts have been saying privately for months: the numbers simply don't add up. What's particularly damning about Houghton's revelation is how it exposes the gap between Labour's public messaging and observable reality. While government ministers talk about managing immigration and addressing housing shortages, experienced observers are calling the entire approach fundamentally flawed and mathematically impossible. The Courier Mail columnist's intervention represents something larger than individual political criticism. It's part of a growing recognition among serious observers that Australia's current trajectory is unsustainable. When respected journalists start using crisis language to describe government policy, it signals a shift in mainstream discourse. Houghton's assessment gains power from his track record of measured political analysis. This isn't someone prone to hyperbole or partisan attacks, it's a journalist known for careful observation, calling out policy failure with unprecedented directness. When moderate voices start using words like impossible, it means the situation has deteriorated beyond normal political disagreement. The housing mathematics that Houghton references are actually quite straightforward, which makes government denials even more insulting to Australian intelligence. We're bringing in people faster than we can build homes, faster than infrastructure can expand, faster than services can accommodate. It's basic arithmetic that even primary school children could understand. What makes this revelation particularly infuriating is how long these problems have been obvious to anyone paying attention. Housing affordability didn't suddenly become a crisis overnight, it's been building for months while government officials insisted everything was under control. Houghton's unsustainable assessment simply confirms what data has been showing for ages. The Sky News Australia interview represents a watershed moment in immigration discourse because it moves beyond political spin into mathematical reality. When journalists start talking about policy impossibility rather than policy disagreement, it signals that we've crossed a threshold from manageable challenges into genuine crisis territory. Houghton's professional credibility makes his assessment impossible to dismiss as partisan politics. With decades of political observation behind him, his impossible conclusion carries weight that transcends typical political commentary. This is an experienced observer calling out systematic governmental failure with unprecedented clarity. The housing crisis that Houghton describes isn't some future possibility, it's current reality affecting millions of Australian families right now. Young people can't afford homes, rental prices are destroying household budgets, and homelessness is increasing while immigration continues at unsustainable levels. The mathematics are undeniable. What's most shocking about Houghton's revelation is how it confirms suspicions that many Australians have harbored but felt unable to express publicly. Immigration levels that ignore housing capacity aren't just poor policy, they are mathematically impossible to sustain, exactly as Houghton stated with such devastating clarity. The Courier Mail columnist's assessment exposes something deeper than policy disagreement. It reveals a government that's either incompetent or dishonest about basic mathematical realities. When you're bringing in more people than you can house, calling that policy sustainable isn't optimism, it's delusion or deception. Behind Houghton's measured language lies a more explosive truth. Australia's immigration system has become so divorced from practical reality that even mainstream journalists are calling it impossible. This isn't radical politics, it's basic arithmetic finally getting honest media coverage. The timing of this intervention couldn't be more crucial as ordinary Australians face unprecedented housing costs while being told that immigration policies are well managed and sustainable. Houghton's impossible assessment cuts through political messaging with mathematical precision that's impossible to spin away. What makes this moment so significant is how it represents mainstream media finally catching up with public opinion. While politicians have been spinning immigration statistics and housing promises, experienced journalists like Houghton have been watching the numbers and recognizing mathematical impossibility. The Sky News Australia platform provided Houghton with the opportunity to speak truths that other media outlets might have softened or qualified. His direct assessment that current policies are unsustainable and housing provision impossible represents journalism at its most essential, speaking truth regardless of political convenience. Houghton's professional reputation makes his assessment particularly devastating for Albanese government. This isn't partisan criticism from political opponents, it's careful analysis from a respected observer concluding that current policies are mathematically impossible to sustain. The housing crisis that prompted Houghton's intervention affects every Australian family, whether they are trying to buy their first home, struggling with rental increases, or watching their neighbourhoods change beyond recognition. His impossible assessment validates concerns that millions have felt but struggled to articulate. What's particularly powerful about Houghton's statement is how it moves immigration discourse beyond political rhetoric into practical mathematics. When respected journalists start calling policies impossible rather than merely challenging, it signals that we've entered genuine crisis territory that demands immediate attention. The Courier Mail columnist's bombshell represents more than individual criticism, it's part of a broader awakening among serious observers that Australia's current trajectory is fundamentally unsustainable. When experienced voices start using crisis language, political business as usual becomes impossible to maintain. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Australian News CC family where the real stories come to life. See you in the next one.